Today, I've got something a little different for you. Instead of a formal review, I just want to showcase a really cool product idea and highlight some concerns I might have for it. This is the SlingStudio, a portable and wireless multi-camera broadcasting platform. With this little hub right there, you can record, monitor, and stream HD video to virtually any streaming platform with a live switcher and audio mixer built in. This seems like a really sick concept, but it's built on a very proprietary basis that always has me a little bit concerned for the future. I've had a lot of fun playing with this, but to truly get the full use out of it and provide a useful review, it needs to be put to the test in a full live event scenario that I just can't do right now. Let's take a look right after this.
They're behind us.
Who?
They have an Orisa.
Orisa? Where?
Don't go around the corner.
Huh?
You better don't.
I just see a Oh. Cool. Dude, will you just get a mod mic already? It attaches to any headphone so you can use that good pair that you like, but I'll actually be able to understand your callouts. It also has a mute switch so that I don't hear all those darn conversations with your grandma. We gotta get serious if we're gonna get out of Platt. Yeah, just order one tonight. Head on over to antlineaudio.com to learn more and check it out. I'm EposVox, here to make tech easier and more fun, and the SlingStudio seems best suited for local school broadcasting, sports and events, church streaming, and maybe a small studio setup if you're willing to fork out the big bucks. The initial hub here itself is about $1,000. That would make sense if you weren't paying out the behind for everything else. With just this hub alone, assuming you already have an iPad and maybe mobile phones, you can only stream one direct source and the rest have to be smartphones. Now, if you're someone setting this up for a school or community situation where your camera people can run around with smartphones anyway, then cool, that may be all you need. But to add wireless HDMI cameras, take this portably and so on, it gets pricey. The camera link units to wirelessly connect up to 1080p 60 FPS cameras via HDMI are $350 each. And they're bulky and can be difficult to mount depending on your camera. They have a 1/4-20 tap on the bottom for a tripod mount and come with shoe adapters, but can still be a bit to work with, especially with smaller camcorders. The battery for this is $150, which isn't too bad compared to everything else. So to get multiple decent cameras up and running, we're talking a couple grand plus an iPad. I personally find this setup expensive, but it is still fairly competitive compared to similar devices and setups, and cheaper than buying capture cards and wireless NDI encoders, which can be up to $500 a box. So it seems pricey, but maybe it isn't. I keep mentioning an iPad. Yes, it is necessary. This is a huge problem I have with the system. The hub itself is useless without one. And I don't just mean a tablet. I mean an actual Apple-branded, relatively new iPad to control and run this thing. I hate it when companies do this. This makes something so inaccessible for seemingly no reason. Sure, make me use a phone or tablet to sync the hub up with my Wi-Fi or to set up its own Wi-Fi hotspot, but then let us use a freaking computer to control it. I see no reason for this to ever be an issue, especially if you're in a mobile broadcasting situation, you have a laptop with a Wi-Fi adapter or hook this up to a wired Ethernet connection. Thankfully, their app to capture from smartphones is available for both iOS and Android, so you can use a wide range of phones there, though on my LG G4 over here, it did tell me that it's not optimized for it. But this does require being on the hub's hotspot Wi-Fi, not on real Wi-Fi, so that can be a problem for other reasons if your individual phones running around need Wi-Fi. The hub itself has a tripod mount and battery connection on the bottom, power button and indicators, along with an SD card slot on the front, and full HDMI in, mini HDMI out, which is always annoying, USB Type-C on the back. The Type-C port can be used with the hub to expand connectivity options, even adding Ethernet for network access, which is really nice. If you're live streaming with this, you want to be using a wired network, so kudos for that, although their USB hub is like $50, but I guess that's not too terribly bad. You can record to either a SD card or a USB hard drive. Of course, lower-end SD cards will struggle with some of the crazy multi-view recording options we'll touch on in a moment, but a nice USB 3 external drive will serve you just fine. They lent me a SanDisk Extreme Pro SD card and a LaCie USB-C external hard drive, and both have kept up with recording quite well. The iPad app itself is fairly competent. You have tools to set up and control Wi-Fi, HDMI out options, which actually enables HDMI pass-through for the front input or outputting quad view, as you see here, or individual program view of your individual sources, which is really nice. And the pass-through is super handy, so you don't need a splitter. There's an audio mixer and separate recording and streaming setups. My biggest complaint here is that you can't change project settings on the fly. Your recording and streaming settings are grouped into projects, and you can't alter them, at least as far as I was able to tell with my time here, once they are made. This is especially annoying since 1080p 60 FPS currently only allows for 2 cameras at a time instead of all 4. So if you wanted to drop it down to add more cameras, you have to set up a whole new project. Obviously, I don't expect to change those settings while recording or streaming, but during the normal setup, it seems kind of important to be able to change that on the fly. This is a 4-input switcher, so regardless if you're using the camera links, direct HDMI input, or smartphones, you can only ever have a max of 4 total sources. Keep that in mind for your configuration. The app lets you monitor all of your input sources, audio levels, and a program view all at once, which is quite nice. This works quite well on the iPad screen, and I was impressed at how well it worked, especially with the drag and drop switching. You can even monitor connection rates to the camera links and connected devices, battery statuses for the phones or camera links. Pretty cool. You can stream and record here as well, of course. What's really neat is how they have recording set up. You can record the mainstream program view, a quad view of all of your sources at once, all of your individual sources, your line in audio, or record all of those options all at the same time to different files. So you can get a file with the quad view, individual files for each individual source, and the program view. Of course, you will need a very fast hard drive to record everything at once, and it needs to be USB 3. Then they have handy plugins for Adobe Premiere Pro or Final Cut Pro to help with importing all of these different files and keeping them in sync if you need it, or you can just handle them manually from the storage device. The camera links seem to have a decent battery life and they charge via USB, but the batteries inside are not hot swappable. But you could carry around a USB battery bank or mount that to a camera rig if you need to keep it charged. The hub battery lasts for about 2 to 3 hours. I like the idea of it serving as a backup. I've had power get cut at events and such that cause the recording or stream to totally stop, so I see that being a backup rather than a main power source. But there are a lot of batteries to consider here. Phone charging, camera link charging, hub battery charging, iPad charging. That's an important one since that's how you're controlling it. Got to make sure all of those charge and stay charged while you're recording or streaming, which can be a bit of a logistics hassle. There is a pretty substantial delay of the audio and video being brought into the system and what the program out or recording out sees. You might be able to see that here. But in my testing, everything has stayed in sync. It's just all at a delay before it hits the final stream. For recording bit rates, 1080p 30 maxes out at 16 megabits per second, and 1080p 60 maxes out at 30 megabits per second, but again, you can only do 2 sources at once. These are fairly competent bit rates. I would prefer to be able to control it myself, but they're alright. The individual sources will record at this bit rate, so the 16 or the 30, but the quad view will be at a lower resolution and bit rate, usually 720p. The program recording bitrate will be lowered to whatever streaming bitrate is set at if you're live streaming at the same time. You can stream to a number of services, but only one at a time. But they did add custom rtmp support, so you can use your own custom rtmp server to broadcast out to other networks, or something like Restream, which will automatically let you stream to both Twitch and YouTube, or Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, or whatever. I've covered both of these options in my OBS masterclass, linked in the video description. There's a limited support that they've added for graphics via JPEG or PNG files. The iPad app has 2 views, Preview and Program. Program is what goes live to the stream. Preview is where you can do some editing, adjust the graphic size and scaling and positioning, add text, and even set up a few picture-in-picture modes. Graphics can be loaded via the SD card or USB drives. As far as quality is concerned, you've been seeing that here. If all went well, this whole video was recorded, other than B-roll, via the SlingStudio. 16 megabits is fairly competent for 1080p 30, especially considering that you get to use that bitrate for all of your different sources all at once. On the storage device, video files are sorted into folders via the source name or program, audio line in, and so on. If you're doing game streaming and want to step up production value, this could be a neat way to run your own small little studio with multiple game consoles, multiple cameras, and so on, with easy one-man control situation too. It's also great for local events, school sports, churches, and so on. While an extremely busy couple of months have prevented me from going as in-depth as I would have liked with the SlingStudio, I am quite impressed with what it's capable of. But there is still the issue of propriety that I mentioned before. It's a touchy situation. You need an iPad. You need to use their hardware. There's no option to bring in NDI encoders or custom rtmp streams from other places, add video files, things like that. You're locked into their ecosystem, which can both be frustrating. I've had a nightmare getting set up with this iPad myself, and can be a concern for future-proofing. And there you go. Like I said, I couldn't do a full review, but I have quite enjoyed my time with this little box, even in my small studio. I'm EposVox, here to make tech easier and more fun. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more awesome tech content. As always, product links for Amazon affiliate and such for SlingStudio will be in the description below that like button. And I'll see you in the next one.
EposVox is a Patreon-supported production. Our videos would simply not be possible without the support and generosity of our patrons, whom you can see on screen now. If you'd like to join the inner circle and get early access to videos, among other benefits, go to patreon.com/EposVox to learn more.